We covered before how the government has policies that will affect customers when they're making their decisions. But we're looking more now at consumer laws that regulate the people doing the marketing, government regulation of marketers. There are some legal requirements that restrict what businesses can do, and they're made to protect consumers. They're consumer protection laws. The consequences for not following these consumer laws could be fines, could be lawsuits, but the biggest one for a lot of businesses are the PR problems that come from that. It can take a long time to recover if you've done some naughty things when it comes to your marketing. It can take a long time to get those customers' trust back, because that's really what you want. It's why bank ads are so lovey-dovey. They don't talk about money. They just talk about feelings and all that sort of stuff, because they don't really want to talk about that sort of thing, right? They want people to have positive feelings towards the business. And if you've done something bad when it comes to marketing, if you've been untruthful and you get busted for it, and it gets on the news that you've been busted for lying to customers, they feel really, really hurt. I don't know why they would be surprised, but they do feel hurt, and there are public relations problems that go along with that. So if you do any of these things that we're about to go through, you kind of have to do them in a legal way. So when it comes to deceptive and misleading advertising, you can kind of make things up in ads, right? But you have to follow the law. And the law is the Competition and Consumer Act 2010. It's enforced by the ACCC, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. And it says that ads have to be truthful. So if they're making statements of fact, then the statement of fact has to be, has to be true. But they're not supposed to unfairly exaggerate. Ads will exaggerate though. So you can get away being a little bit deceptive, but not deceptive, under the law, but deceptive as in the normal English language version of deceptive. You just have to make sure you don't unfairly exaggerate though. Unfairly exaggerate is very, very different to exaggerating. So if you have, you think of like Red Bull gives you wings. It doesn't give you wings, right? But it's not really unfair to say that Red Bull gives you wings, because no one's really going to take that seriously. It's not unfair, and it's not tricking people. People aren't opening cans and going, "Oh, I didn't grow the wings. I jumped off a building and now, falling to my death." You can't unfairly exaggerate. You can't say that a product is going to do something that it won't, and then pass it off as if it really, really will. The third thing is to not leave out important facts, to make sure that if there is something that the product can't do, like the main product for which the main purpose for which people would buy it, then you need to say that. Price discrimination is something that is illegal, but still happens. Right? Price discrimination is where the same product is sold for a different price in a different market. And technology companies have done a lot of this, especially when it comes to downloads and things like that. It is legal if there's some difference. So say in the product or the costs of getting the product there, if there's some difference, then you can actually do it. My favourite example, and for anyone who's on the North Shore, you may not even know these suburbs, you'll know Mount Druitt. But Mount Druitt McDonald's and Plumpton McDonald's, Plumpton's like, 2 kilometres from Mount Druitt, they have different prices. The Plumpton McDonald's has higher prices, like it's a much more prestigious suburb. Yeah, they have never really been called on it, but they would have to say that there's some difference. There's got to be some difference in the costs of getting the products all the way to Plumpton that don't exist for Mount Druitt. There has to be some difference in the product, which that would be hard to argue because McDonald's and they're kind of standardized products. So there would need to be some argument. If I guess if anyone in Plumpton had a law degree, they might be able to look into it. But there has to be some difference for it to be legitimate. And it's banned by the Competition and Consumer Act. You can call it the CNC Act if you want to show off to the markers. Oh yes, I'm just going to abbreviate it because I know so much and I don't have time to write the entire thing. But it can be good because sometimes people go, wait, is it consumer and competition? Wait, is it commission and consumer? Wait, so you just write the CNC Act and markers will know what you're talking about. There are also things called implied conditions. Implied means unwritten, and conditions are just parts of a contract. So it could be a verbal contract. You don't sign a contract when you go and buy things at Woolies or Coles, but you still have a contract, right? And there are implied conditions. There are unwritten parts of that contract. So examples are things like that the seller's description is accurate. that if a product describes something, if it says that there's a certain amount of it or something like that, that it needs to be accurate. There's also an implied condition that the product has to be of good quality, of reasonable quality, of merchantable quality. It has to be good enough to be able to be sold. Now, that will depend on how much you're actually paying for it. So if you buy a car for $1,000, it's obviously going to be very different to if you buy, a car for $100,000. And the product needs to be fit for its purpose. So fit is not something that you usually use in everyday life as a word. Is it fit for its purpose? Does it actually do what it's supposed to do? Right? If it's something that is supposed to, like, if it's a hammer, and you hit a nail with it and it doesn't work, it just breaks off, or it's made of plastic or something like that. It needs to be able to do the thing that it was sold for, right? It needs to be fit for its purpose. The only exception to this is if the seller points out what the faults are. So if the seller says, all right, it can't do this and this and this, then that's no longer unwritten, is it? They've pointed out that these are things that are wrong with it. The last thing that we need to look at are warranties. A warranty is just a guarantee to repair or to replace faulty goods. What does this have to do with marketing? Well, they can be a really good marketing tool. You could use some longer warranties to give the buyer an impression of higher quality. So if you look at things like the Mitsubishi Diamond Advantage, this car's going to last forever. Wow, most cars will last that long. It doesn't really matter how long the car is going to last, and it might not. All they're saying is we're going to repair it or we're going to replace it if it breaks, if it really doesn't last 5 years or whatever. But it gives the impression of higher quality, right? So that's a marketing way of getting customers to buy it. Business might not be around in 5 years, but if you say, oh, it's got a 5-year warranty, your assumption, or in your head, and your behind what you're really thinking, there is this idea that, yeah, this is going to last at least 5 years because someone has said 5-year warranty. No, it doesn't, right? It might last 2 days and then they have to repair it, but they're just saying that they will repair it or replace it, right? But it's all about giving the impression of higher quality.